How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. You can also text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Now, We gotta move on to important other news beyond Iran and everything else happening out there because, well, there's a lot of stuff happening. But I wanna talk about the midterms. I have actually not done, contrary to popular opinion, a lot of raw politics, but we got to today. One of my great frustrations with the faith team around the president is that they are so concerned about not getting scraps from the table that they refuse to show the president tough love. And that is a common pattern of people around the president. They do not want to be blunt and tough with him because they are afraid he will turn his back on them. And maybe that is the case. But as we head to the midterms and the president continues to go off on social media, alienating people, I have to tell you that at some point someone needs to have the blunt and frank conversations with the president of the United States about his behavior. And for those who say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, I actually think you can, but you have to be forceful, and people don't want to be forceful with the president. And let me explain to you now why this needs to happen. Sam Alito and Clarence Thomas will not be retiring from the Supreme Court this summer, according to multiple credible outlets. One of the best Supreme Court reporters, who is the best sourced in the country, is Jan Crawford, and she is saying that Alito and Thomas are not going anywhere, and she has heard it from sources close to both of them. She's frankly, given her relationship, probably heard it from both of them, that they're not retiring. The odds are going up that the Republicans could lose the United States Senate, and that is a real problem. And the Democrats, my friends, are going nuts. This is Ro Khanna. He is a member of the progressive left. He was on This Week on ABC, which, by the way, I was invited to be on this weekend, and I couldn't because it's our church's 200th anniversary this weekend. We had a special service at church. I wasn't going to give that up to be on TV and in D.C. This is Jonathan Carl with Ro Khanna. Listen to this.
You went further than even most of your Democratic colleagues. You called for a stop of funding for defensive weapons to Iran, including Iron Dome, which is something you had supported. I remember you and I spoke about it on this show not all that long ago. Well, you said it was something that protected not just Israelis, but also Palestinians.
I am for the Iron Dome technology. I'm glad UAE has it. I'm glad Israel has it.
You don't think that we should give it to Israel anymore?
Why can't they afford it with $45 billion? Even Rahm Emanuel agrees with me. I mean, why are we subsidizing one of the richest countries in the world? They have health care for all their people. Why aren't we putting that money in our communities for our jobs? Do I want them to have Iron Dome? Absolutely. I want any country to have Iron Dome to protect their citizens. But the free ride is over. They're not going to be getting American tax dollars, and they're certainly not going to be dictating to the American president. The American president will call the shot.
Interestingly enough, President Trump disputes this and says he was not dictated to by Israel. That he decided that Iran needed to be attacked because they couldn't get nuclear weapons, and October 7th and their behavior thereafter and how they funded terrorists around the world to attack American interests was what led him to do it. It had nothing to do with Israel telling him to do it. Likewise, you should also know that We give more money to Japan every year, including for defensive weapons in Japan. There is the stirring anti-Semitism on the left in this country within the Democratic Party that has even got people like Rahm Emanuel saying we have to walk away from Israel. Why? Because the anti-Semites are taking over the Democratic Party. This is Steve Kornacki on polling out there on anti-Semitism.
Well, and it's numbers like these, Steve, that are applying pressure to President Trump to bring this war to an end.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear what you're seeing here in terms of that number. That's internationally what folks are thinking of. We mentioned the cost of living here. We say, what is driving, what matters most to you when it comes to economic matters? And again, no surprise here, but it's inflation, it's the cost of health care, the clear majority, one of those two things right there. Also, though, now more recently, the cost of gasoline, you know, what they're paying at the pump here. Add these two numbers together, very somewhat. 2/3, 65% say that the cost of gasoline is a serious, in some way, problem for them and for their families right now. And then I think there's an interesting question here, a broad question. Again, this connects with the Middle East. This connects with politics in D.C. this week. This ongoing question here, we asked the basic one. Who do you sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? The country is dead even, 50-50.
Well,
if you're more sympathetic to the Palestinians than the Israelis, you really haven't been paying attention. You really haven't been paying attention. This is becoming, though, a talking point on the left. This is Mamdani, the mayor of New York.
We are speaking about a federal administration that has spent upwards of $28 billion killing thousands of people all the way over in the Middle East at the same time as we're being told that this money cannot be found to invest in working class Americans across this country. And I wish that the words of Tupac from the 90s weren't still prescient, but they continue to be true for too many, which is that we always have money for war and not to feed the poor.
You know what's so amazing about this line that we're hearing now from people like Rokahana, we're hearing from Mamdani, is we spend less than 1 out of every $10 in the American budget on the military, and we spend over 7 out of $10 of the American budget on social services. We actually spend over 70% of the federal budget and less than 1% or 10% of the federal budget on defense. Over 70% of the federal budget, higher than that actually, like 75% of the federal budget goes to social welfare programs. They want us to cut further the defense budget when less than 10% of the federal budget goes to defense. Far less than 10% of the federal budget goes to defense. Far more than 70% goes to social welfare, and yet it's never enough. And what are we getting? We're getting graft and greed and corruption in the nation. We're getting Democratic states stealing the money. It's absolutely bizarre to me that we are in a situation where the Republicans can't focus on a compelling message because the president of the United States can't keep his mouth shut on social media and keeps being a distraction for the right and keeps putting the right on defense. There is a way, by the way, to defend the situation in Iran because 70-some% of Americans agree that Iran can't get nuclear weapons. There should be your message right there. In fact, the president seems to be hinting on it today that he went into Iran to stop them from getting nukes. And then you got Pramila Jayapal, who is one of the leaders of the progressives in the House of Representatives. Listen to this.
The majority of Americans across the country, regardless of political party, know that immigrants from all over the world, Somalia, India, wherever they're from, Latin America, Africa, that immigrants have built this country and make this country what it is today.
Let's just be honest here. Immigrants didn't really build this country per se. The founders in this country and the original colonists built this country. Have others expanded on it? Yes, certainly slave labor was involved in that. It was not Somalis who were building this country. It was not people from Southeast Asia. It was certainly Chinese immigrants who built the railways in the West. But this idea that it was third world immigrants built this country isn't really true. Have you seen the pictures of the Great Depression when they were building the Empire State Building? Weren't a lot of Somalis in the pictures. The redefinition of the building of this country is part of the left. They've lost their minds. And then siding with the bad guys. Listen to this. This is the Democratic candidate in Michigan, who's campaigning with Hassan Piker.
You said the Israeli government is evil. Do you think they're just as evil as Hamas?
Yes, killing tens of thousands of people makes you pretty damn evil. It's not how evil is this one versus that one. Hamas, evil. The Israeli government, evil. We could say both.
Is Netanyahu, in your view, war criminal? He's a war criminal.
Absolutely. Do you not think he is? When you conduct a genocide, you're a war criminal.
There was no genocide in Gaza. I want to be real clear with you here. There is no genocide in Gaza. That is a talking point of the left. They always claim there's a genocide when terrorists get wiped out. There was no genocide in Gaza, and yet you've got this guy now claiming that Netanyahu is a war criminal who engaged in genocide. Michigan Democrats just nominated a raving anti-Semite to be their candidate for the University of Michigan Board of Regents. Their person, Amir Makled, called Jews demons, shared anti-Semitic social media memes, praised Hezbollah, wants Jews to be banned from the United States Congress. They pushed out of power a normal Democrat in favor of a raving anti-Semite who declares the Jews are demons and Jews should not be allowed to be elected to the United States House of Representatives. That's how far left these people are in the Democratic Party. This is why the midterms matter, because the Democrats are being held captive by insane anti-Semites. So it does not help the Republicans for the President of the United States to keep going on social media and saying insane things himself, because it makes both parties look nuts when one party is far more nuts than the other, and that would be the Democrats. You risk losing the United States Senate to these people. And if you do, you better pray that Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito live long and healthy lives, because they're not retiring this year. Every Senate race matters. It's why the Republicans in Texas should be rejecting Ken Paxton, and they're not going to, because you're going to have to spend so much money saving Ken Paxton in a general election. It's going to cost you Georgia. It's going to cost you Michigan. It's going to cost you North Carolina. It could potentially cost you Nebraska now, because the Democrats are uniting behind an independent. They've got Sherrod Brown running for re-election in Ohio. He used to be popular there. If things go poorly for the GOP nationally in a wave year, it could cost you Ohio. I hope not. I think that one's the least likely, but you still got issues there. And Vivek Ramaswamy, his campaign for governor isn't catching fire there. That could drag down the ballot. Republicans have to be on their A game at all times, because the media is always on the side of the Democrats, and it makes it real easier for the Democrats when the president will not get off social media saying insane things. That puts all the Republicans on defense and makes Republicans have to get off message to deal with what the president has tweeted. The Democrats are being taken over by a bunch of Jew-hating anti-Semites who also hate this country and believe that your contribution to this country is nothing, but the Somali contribution to this country is everything. They're going insane. But that insanity is going to be covered up by the media, who's going to focus on Trump's tweets. You're already, Republicans, headed into a midterm where the party in the White House typically doesn't do well. You've got to be on your A game at all times, in all cases, in all places. And are you right now? Are you? Ladies and gentlemen, the midterms always matter. This year, I tend to always tell you it's not an existential issue, that it's not the end of the world. The country's not going to go to hell in a handbasket. It's just a natural swing and cycle back and forth. You got James Carville out there now telling Democrats when they take back power, never give it up. Pack the Supreme Court, bring in Puerto Rico and make D.C. a state, which they're not going to be able to do, but they're going to try. He wants them to blow up the filibuster yet again. That's why Republicans shouldn't blow up the filibuster, make the Democrats do it. I don't think the Democrats are going to have the votes to do it, even if they try. You got real problems. Life will be easier if Republicans keep the Senate. Whatley's not doing well in North Carolina. That's a Democratic pickup if Whatley loses to Roy Cooper. Mike Collins is the front runner in Georgia. He's got an ethics issue that is going to blow up in the general election if he's the nominee, but he's probably going to be the nominee unless something changes in Georgia. Derek Dooley's not catching fire. Buddy Carter is a good guy, but he's got some ethics issues as well. The Republicans look like they're going to squander any opportunity to pick up the Georgia Senate seat. Ossoff will stay another 6 years because the Georgia Republicans can't get their act together and can't not help themselves but pick bad candidates. The Texas Republicans look like they want to sabotage an easy reelection for John Cornyn, for a slog for Ken Paxton that consumes a bunch of resources that cost them other races. And the Democrats are going so insane, and they're openly saying it doesn't matter how insane we get, the Republicans are going to have so much problems because Trump keeps dragging them down. And they're not wrong on that. This is a problem. And then if you lose the Senate to the Democrats, good luck filling Supreme Court seats, let alone any other seat in the judiciary. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. I got to talk to you about this redistricting in Virginia. This is wild. In the state of Virginia, Democrats are claiming it's fair to massively redistrict the state, dividing the Shenandoah Valley into multiple parts and essentially taking people who live in the D.C. area and stretching their districts all the way out into rural Virginia, hundreds of miles away. All to preserve Democratic seats. I got to play this from Eric Holder. Listen to this exchange with Margaret Brennan.
Now, we've been talking about the war and the energy costs that go along with it. Historically, the president's party doesn't usually do well in the midterm races. So why do Democrats need to do this? I mean, it sounds like it's acknowledging that the Democratic Party can't win on its own, that it has to go through these measures.
The Democrats can certainly win if it's a fair fight. And the question I have...
It wasn't going to be a fair fight in Virginia?
No, it wasn't going to be a fair fight nationally if you try to steal seats in Texas, in North Carolina, and in Missouri. And so the question I have for people who are critical of that, which we're doing, is what were we supposed to do?
You got that? Who cares about Virginia? We got to focus on the people of Texas. The Democrats have so nationalized this, and it's not about fairness. When Republicans do it, it's theft. When Democrats do it, it's fair. And you would notice Margaret Brennan not calling him out on that how is it actually fair? It's not. They told the people of Virginia that they mattered, and then Democrats got elected in Virginia and told the people of Virginia, it's not about you, it's about Texas. So in Virginia, people are denied their representation in Congress because Democrats nationally are concerned with what people in Texas did. It's not really the way the system's supposed to work, and yet the Democrats are the ones who essentially are taking the position that we must kill democracy to save democracy. Let's talk tankless. Y'all know I love my Rinnai tankless water heater. I really actually do. Have endless hot water. You can yank your tank out like we yanked our tank out. And right now, Rinnai, join as an advertiser this year. They're offering a $500 rebate just to my listeners. If you want to install a Rinnai tankless water heater, here's the details. Homeowners only. It's got to be purchased and installed by June 30th. What you do is you go to talkingtankless.com. You'll see a Rinnai rebate page. You click that button and put in information to access their rebate terminal. And then you'll find the Eric Erickson consumer rebate. It'll ask you for the code ERIC, E-R-I-C-K, and you'll get the $500 rebate. You got to have your tank installed by June 30th. Homeowners only. Go to talkingtankless.com. Follow the prompts to the rebate page. Put in your information. You'll see the Eric Erickson rebate. Put in my name, Eric, when it asks you for the code, E-R-I-C-K. Do your family a favor. Go to TalkingTankless.com today. You can even find a Rinnai professional to install it for you right there and have endless hot water like my family does. Greetings, conversationalists. It is Eric Erickson here. Delighted to have you with me. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program? I want to spend a few moments here talking about Sean Duffy. Sean, I've known Sean for a while, since he was running for Congress. You know, people forget he was on The Real World back in the day. He was the lumberjack. I think the San Francisco Real World episode. He and his wife Rachel got married. He was on Fox News. She was as well. After he left Congress, telegenic guy. They got a lot of kids. Great, just family. They are just two wonderful people, both of them. And he is the Secretary of Transportation now, and he is doing a lot to undo the damage that Pete Buttigieg did. I want you to recall that under the Biden administration, one of the reasons we had a shortfall of air traffic controllers is because Pete Buttigieg decided that we needed DEI air traffic controllers. Instead of just hiring the best available people, he needed to have so many people of one race or one gender or preference, sexual orientation, what have you. There's been a big lawsuit the Trump administration has finally been able to dispense with because they actually were discriminating. You will recall as well that one of the things Pete Buttigieg did as Secretary of Transportation was do global warming nonsense and climate change risk assessments and slowed all sorts of stuff down, including upgrading our air traffic control systems. In Nashville, Tennessee this morning, 2 Southwest airline jets had to do emergency maneuvers to avoid crashing into each other, landing in Nashville, Tennessee. These sorts of incidents have escalated. I would note how ghoulish it was of progressives when right after Trump gets elected and Duffy, day one, is sworn in as Secretary of Transportation, that horrific accident happened in Washington, D.C., where a military helicopter ran into an American Airlines jet that was landing. And they immediately, the Democrats, never letting a crisis go to waste, blamed Sean Duffy and Donald Trump for it when they were not to blame. One of the reasons there was an air traffic control shortage in Washington, D.C. is because of Pete Buttigieg's DEI demands and the lawsuit related thereto and the slowing of hiring of air traffic control. Around the country as well, there have been multiple deaths now related to illegal aliens getting commercial driver's licenses from California to New York who could not speak English and could not drive. Multiple Americans have been killed by illegal aliens with commercial truck driving licenses. And Sean Duffy has worked to stamp those out, that you can't give illegal aliens commercial driver's licenses, in large part because they're illegal and also they don't speak the language or understand the road rules in this country. One of his innovations is on hiring for air traffic controllers. I want to play this for you with Peter Ducey on Fox News.
The department did something really interesting this week. Can you explain why it is that the Transportation Department is looking for the next generation of air traffic controllers in a pack of video gamers?
Right. That might seem odd, Peter, but we polled a random sample of our academy students in Oklahoma City for air traffic control. Of the 250 that we polled, only 3 of them were not gamers. And so we thought, well, listen, there's a connection here. They problem solve, they're spatially aware, they do multiple things at the same time. It's very reminiscent of what air traffic controllers do. And so we reached out to the community. Listen, we blew the socks off any prior record. We had 12,000 applications in 24 hours. 11,000 of those were qualified. We've already sent 8,000 of them to go get their skills test. So again, looking to find the best and the brightest, the best qualified to become air traffic controllers I think this is a sign that, looking at who we attract, who's great at the job, this made sense for us to reach out to the gaming community, and the response has been remarkable. And again, we have a shortage of controllers. We need more controllers in the space. By the way, 3 years in, average controller making $155,000.
3 years in, $155,000 as an air traffic controller. It's a highly stressful job. And by the way, genius for Sean Duffy to recognize the pattern of gamers applying, because it's true. My son has friends at our house every single day, and they never set foot in the door. They're all online. So, I do ads for Vision Computer. They got him a gaming PC a couple years ago, and he has friends in Savannah, here in our town, and a couple others who have moved out of town, or I think up in Virginia and the like, and they are all together. And you can hear them upstairs, and one of them is in charge. Usually it's my kid who just takes the lead and is barking orders, and you're doing this and you're doing this, and they're doing these games together, and it is remarkable the 3 or 4 things you do at once. My kid's got ADD, ADHD. He's got it bad. And we were the parents who kind of refused, like, no, we're not putting our kid on medicine. That seems so easy. We did occupational therapy with him on how to control it. And one of the things that the occupational therapist said was, you let him sit on a Swiss ball to bounce and listen to music all while he's studying. And all of those things at one time actually calm him down. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and she's like, you talk on the radio and send messages and read articles all at the same time. I was like, no, I don't. Literally, I'm doing this right now. I'm texting someone as I'm talking to you, and I'm got a Wall Street Journal article right here on the U.S.-Iranian talks, and I'm having a monologue on Sean Duffy. Yeah, apparently I do this too. It's the ADHD, doing the three things at once calms you down. And the air traffic controllers, that's what they got to do. You got the plane on the ground, the plane that's landing, the plane that's taking off, the plane in the sky. You got to keep them all together. And Duffy and his team recognize this, and they have had rapid recruiting for air traffic controllers. They've got to go through the training. The training is detailed. It is in depth. They've got to go through the training. They've got to go through the mentorship. They got to go through all of that. But they gave up the DEI components and just looked for people who might be interested in the job and said, hey, 3 years in, you're earning six figures. What do you think? And boom, they're hiring. But it's not just that aspect of it. And notice he's not getting a massive amount of attention out there in the press other than Fox News pointing this out. What he's also doing is taking on the Democrats' bizarre need to give illegal aliens in this country access to 18-wheelers to drive around the country in lieu of hiring Americans to do the job.
We've had a flood of people, young people coming in that want to be air traffic controllers. Again, they have to be qualified. We have to go through an assessment process, but this has been wildly successful. And if you think just what these gamers are doing on screens and they're talking, and there's a lot of things going on, they're used to that, and that's actually what you're doing in a tower, in a facility. And so they've become well suited.
Again, I mean, he's doing a great job, and he's not getting a lot of fanfare for this. And they found a pattern to be able to hire, and they found a pattern of illegal alien truck drivers in this country who are unwilling and unable to comply with the rules of the road, who are getting people killed. And all of this falls back to essentially Sean Duffy's day job as Secretary of Transportation is undoing the damage Pete Buttigieg did. And the Democrats continue to amplify and elevate Buttigieg as some sort of next-generation Democratic hero who was a disaster as Secretary of Transportation. Let's not forget he took maternity leave or paternity leave, and no one even knew he was gone. That's how effective he was. And the dirty little secret is he was following a documentary filmmaker around the country who was showing a documentary about Pete Buttigieg's presidential run while he was on paternity leave. Yes, I've heard that from multiple reporters, many of whom didn't have their news stations run the story because they didn't want to put Pete in a bad light because he's the future. And Duffy's having to undo the damage. He's not getting a lot of credit. And in fact, there have been a couple of leaks from inside the Trump administration attacking Duffy because people are jealous of the good press that he gets. So my apologies, Mr. Secretary, if you get bad press because I've done a monologue on the competent job you're doing, but it comes with the territory these days, I guess, of people jealous of competence. Just side note, Hegseth, and Tulsi Gabbard and a couple of the others, and the RFK, God help him, Kash Patel, they get a lot of bad press in the Trump administration. I do want to say on the Kash Patel story, I need to note this for you. No media outlet in the United States was willing to run an expose on Eric Swalwell's sexual predations because no one would go on the record. And so the media chose not to run the story. With Kash Patel, The Atlantic was perfectly happy to rely on anonymous sources to make wild accusations against Kash Patel about being drunk on the job or not showing up for work and not being responsive and all these other things, all anonymously sourced. They wouldn't do it with Eric Swalwell, but they would do it for Kash Patel, who today has filed a $250 million lawsuit against The Atlantic for the story in federal court in Washington, D.C. He's suing them, claiming it's defamation. Now, you would say he has a high bar, but as a public figure, there's the Carol Burnett exception. The Carol Burnett exception was a suit where apparently someone claimed that she was in public drunk. They saw her. She sued because it wasn't true. And while there's a high bar, the judge said she met it when someone accused you of being publicly intoxicated and you're not. And there's precedent there for Kash Patel to sue the Atlantic if this story isn't true. I don't think he would have filed the lawsuit otherwise. But Patel and RFK and Hegseth, they get a lot of bad press. But you know what? Marco Rubio is a highly competent Secretary of State. Chris Wright is a highly competent Energy Secretary. Doug Burgum, highly competent Secretary of the Interior. Sean Duffy, highly competent Secretary of Transportation. Scott Bessent gets a lot of headlines because he's got the zingers and the one-liners, and he's always on TV as Secretary of Treasury. He's a highly competent Treasury Secretary. Pam Bondi's out. Todd Blanche is in as the Attorney General. He's the interim Attorney General. The president, from what I'm told, is in no hurry to replace him because he thinks Blanche is competent, and thus far, he's competent. For all of the drama queens who get all the attention in the Trump administration, he's actually got a lot of really competent people working for him. And Sean Duffy is one of them. And Duffy has been attacked repeatedly, but most of the attacks have now gone away as the competence starts to show through. He is upgrading our air traffic control systems. It is wild that our air traffic control systems still are on pieces of paper on a system developed in the 1960s. The Biden administration promised that they would get it done, and they never did. And he's going to get it done within the next 3 years. Something the Biden administration projected could take up to 15 years is going to happen because of Sean Duffy's competence. Illegal aliens are going to be having their commercial driver's licenses taken away, and states that keep trying to give them commercial driver's licenses will be penalized by the Secretary of Transportation. He shut down the federal funding of the high-speed rail program in California that can't get built. They want $127 billion now to build this train to nowhere, and Duffy said, nope, you're not getting another federal penny. They tried to sue him. They lost the lawsuit. We got some good cabinet picks in the Trump administration, and it's nice to see the good guys being competent and executing the way they need to execute to get the job done. The air traffic controller one is the one that just impresses me the most, that you realize a pattern of these people who are applying for jobs. They're all from the gamer community. Why don't we open this up to the gamer community? Because it turns out that you're running these games, you're navigating, you're talking to people online, you're positioning your soldiers on the battlefield in these games. You're doing all these sorts of things as gamers. It's like what an air traffic controller does with planes. Let's go. It works. Friends, I wanted to spend a moment. We don't talk a lot about Sean Duffy. He's kind of behind the scenes. But it's worth using that as a segue to point out that for all of the angst and anxiety that a guy like Hegseth or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. can generate, or Tulsi Gabbard and her failures as a position. By the way, I'm told that she may be the next one pushed out. It's notable that the Director of National Intelligence is leading the investigation into Georgia election fraud from 2020 when she has no investigative powers. She's just trying to stay relevant and in Trump's good graces. After the Joe Kent stuff, though, she is out of his favor. They don't even invite her into a lot of the classified meetings anymore. But for all of them, you've got a Rubio, you've got a Wright, you've got a Burgum, you've got a Bessent, you got a Duffy. I don't even know who the HHS secretary is. That guy's so below the radar. Good for him. And by the way, I should not forget the Secretary of Agriculture. We've got a great Secretary of Agriculture in Brooke Rollins and Kelly Loeffler at the Small Business Administration. We've got some competent people. You would never know that from the press because they want to doom and gloom over some of the guys who get the most attention. I mean, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a nut job. He's not really qualified for the job, but he's there. But some of these guys are doing really, really good work, and they are the unsung heroes of this administration, keeping the federal bureaucracy running the way it should, in not interfering with your rights and getting the job done, and Duffy's one of them. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I got to play you this from the Pope. He is, making the Trump administration happy with this statement, which, by the way, he's just telling the truth here. As I pointed out to you the other day, everybody in this country is like, oh, he's attacking the president. He's in Africa dealing with issues on the continent of Africa, not really obsessed with the president, as some claim.
And there's been a certain narrative that has not been accurate in all of its aspects, but because of the political situation created when on the first day of the trip, the President of the United States made some comments about myself. Much of what has been written since then has been more commentary on commentary, trying to interpret what has been said. Just one little example, the talk that I gave at the prayer meeting for peace a couple days ago was prepared 2 weeks ago, well before the president ever commented on myself and on the message of peace that I am promoting. And yet, as it happens, it was looked at as if I was trying to debate again the president, which is not in my interest at all.
Exactly. As I said the other day, he was given a speech in Cameroon to Cameroonian people who have been war ravaged in a secessionist movement that has turned violent, where the people are, in the name of God, slaughtering other citizens of Cameroon. And that's what he was addressing. And yet people in this country on both sides of the aisle took it as him attacking Donald Trump. But on the left, they celebrated it. By the way, people on the left, let's be real here. If he were to speak up about abortion, you would be deeply offended, or transgenderism, you would be deeply offended. But because you thought he was talking about the president, isn't it convenient how people on the left and the right glom onto the different things the Pope says? Same thing, like we see this Christian nationalist movement on Jesus now, just selectively editing the Bible like the progressives do, because they're all progressives at the end of the day, on the left and the right, when they do this sort of stuff. Y'all, I mentioned Vision Computers earlier, and the gaming PC they built for my son. It is a fantastic, fantastic computer, and I don't have to be tech support because we've got Vision's tech support with it. You can't do, if you build a computer, it comes with the computer. Or you can buy the tech support for your company. You can do managed IT with Vision Computers. All you do is call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com, 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com, and you let Vision take care of you. They're a managed IT service. Let me just explain this one. If you're a small business anywhere in the country, your employees will get a special phone number that they can call. And in 15 seconds or less, someone from Vision, a human, not an AI chatbot, will be on the phone with them, helping them with their problems. Faster than a Google search, your employees can be really productive at their jobs, let Vision be really productive at their computers, and you, the boss, don't have to pay the six-figure in-house IT guy, and you don't have to be the IT guy either. You let Vision Computer do it. Call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com. If you call them at 404-COMPUTE, tell them Eric sent you. You might save some money. If you build computers with them, you get the IT support for free.